All right, it's time to talk about all the fun and exciting things going down this week in Reddit. And Case, I think we would be remiss if we didn't start the show out handing out huge thank yous to everybody in Detroit. I mean, from start to finish, right? It was an amazing
Absolutely.
time. Picked you up. Where do we go first? The Good Time Party store?
Which was awesome. I sent Snapchats of their beer selection to my beer nerd friends, and they were very impressed.
Yeah, it was good stuff down in Northfield. Check them out. They had a lot of good stuff there. Also, we have to. He's such a great guy. He's I love you all, but he's one of my favorite people that I've met since we started doing the Sandman.
Yeah.
Set us up with a private tour of Ford Field Friday before the scrimmage. How awesome was that? Case,
It was amazing for me, man. It was like my pilgrimage to Mecca,
Got to see the locker room, right? I mean, think about it. The first time this guy sees Ford Field, the first time he goes there, he shows up, he's down on the field, he gets to go do a locker room tour. I mean, it took me till I was like, I don't know, old before I got my first shot, right? I mean, good deal for you, man. That was awesome. One of the things I want to do is make sure you had a good time and got to see a lot of good experiences.
I very much did.
I hope it worked out.
Great food, great beer, great times, football.
What a city, right? I mean, Detroit is just, it's so underrated. By so many people talk it down.
Very much.
You see it. I mean, it's such a great place. Also got to say thanks to Colin, who was our St. Jude dinner with Chris, Case, Sandman, and Riz winner. What a great guy. Awesome dude. Came out to dinner, had a great time. He then came to the party, brought his fiance with him, and gorgeous girl, sat around with a bunch of football nerds that were drinking too much and didn't, like, it was a total sausage party.
With
right?
it.
and very elegantly sat there and put up with it. I mean, that's... Keep that ring on there. She's a keeper, Colin. Great work, man. God, Ken, who worked the door for us. He was our referee.
Oh, he was huge for me that day, and I feel like I thanked him a couple times, but I'm not sure I really expressed exactly how grateful I was that he was there.
He was. I mean, from day one before we started the video shoot. I mean, the referee stuff. Then we're there this week working at the party and everything. He's been amazing. Just because
you and I's brains were like elsewhere entirely, so to have him able to take on that task force was huge.
Yeah, totally. He was killer start to finish. He's the same guy. Remember when I talked about the Thanksgiving game last year where I got snuck into the line? He's the guy that snuck me into the line, me and my mom and the family. It's like he's always right there. We need him. Awesome dude. Thank you so much, Ken. Got to thank Dean Blandino. Flew out. I mean, we didn't fly him. He did it on his own dime. He's totally there. One of the announcements at the party, just so everybody knows, Dean is going to do he's going to look at the top 3 most controversial calls every week for the Lions game. He's going to put together a video for our YouTube channel. Again, we talk about what's going on there. Dean frickin' Blandino, rules analyst, former VP of officiating, is creating content for our YouTube channel. Just think about what that is. Okay, just stew on that for a minute, guys. Also, Dan Miller. What? Right? So
that was huge for me.
A bunch of people came to the party after the Family Fest. And Rocket Man Dan was the first one to show up. The only thing
we're sitting there doing the podcast, and there's this dude standing there, and I've heard, I would know his voice anywhere, but I wouldn't have necessarily been able to pick him out of a crowd. So I see him standing there, and I think that and actually, I mean, he wasn't the only dude in his 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, who was there, which is awesome. I love that you guys, I love that this isn't just a show for, you think podcast, you think people in their 20s, whatever. I love that we have a broader, audience than that.
Our numbers are crazy, man. It's not old. It doesn't skew old or young. It's just this wide.
Right. Which is awesome. So awesome. But he's standing there and he wasn't there the rest of the night. So I hadn't gotten a chance, I hadn't introduced myself or anything. So I was, it piqued my interest that he's standing there. And then you were like, oh, hey, we have to introduce somebody.
Oh, Dan's there. So think about this, and this is what I mean. Ford Field family night ends. A bunch of people come to the party. Dan is the first one of all of those people to get there. So he's got all the stuff he's got to do as part of working the event.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I can think of, you remember Pulp Fiction, The Wolf?
Mm-hmm.
It's a 30-minute drive. I'll be there in 10. Right? I swear to God, that's how I got there. And then the whole time, and you can, it's on the video on YouTube. He talks about it. I mean, he likes the podcast. He listens. He loves what we do. He's just such a really cool, gracious guy that is not just in his like professional world. He looks in a really broad spectrum of what's going out there. Really cool dude. So gracious. Great conversation with him behind the scenes. And then
yeah, absolutely.
It was so awesome to be able to have him do the interview with the audience questions of Dean. And as a matter of fact, we're going to put that at the end of this show. It's on the video on the YouTube, so I really recommend you go see that and watch it because the video adds so much more to it. But we're going to put the audio on as an add-on at the end of this show, which is how we're kind of
just why we're
the 2 episodes,
calling it right 2 episodes.
218, yeah. So that piece of it'll be there. Also, the part where we have Dean and Riz and everything else is on the YouTube as well. But Dan is just such a professional. He's so awesome. Really, really cool. So anyway, yeah, check that out. Big thanks to Dan. Also, the folks at training camp. I had something happen was really, really weird to me. And you and I both aren't really good at how to deal with this stuff. But I was sitting in the stands and I was talking to Kent Platt. We're sitting there. It's like a yearly tradition where we kind of tweet together and we kind of like we work together as putting tweets together, help each other voice tweets as we're and recognize things on the field. And it's just I really, really enjoy that time with Kent. Kent's such a cool guy. But then someone turns around and says, "Hey, Chris," like 4 rows in front. And this is when you had the credential when you were up in the media stands. I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You're Chris from the podcast, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it's a dad, right? It's a dad. He's like, just like a normal like suburban dad with his 2 kids, beautiful kids, right sitting there. He goes, "I love the show, man. I listen to you guys all the time." I'm like, "Thanks." Like I was like, "Wow, man, this is like it just stunned me, right?" And I'm like, how'd you know? He's like, "Well, you got a distinctive voice, right?" I'm like, I didn't know that. Well, thanks. That's really, really kind. It blew me away, right? That somebody recognized me from the voice. And then like 2 rows in front of him, guy to, "Hey, Chris." I'm like, "Hey," he goes, "I love the show too, right?" And I'm like, "Is my voice really that distinctive?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh my god." I'm walking around like some weirdo. Like everyone's like, "Oh god." But anyway, no, it was cool. All the people that said hi. Mona came by. She said hi, sat with us for a bit. I wish I could have talked more legal stuff with her because she's got a brilliant legal mind. But just a bunch of really, really cool people saying hi, hanging out. It was really, really awesome. Mark stopped by on the first day. I got to hang with him for the whole camp. Just everybody. I mean, the whole Detroit experience. I really hate when I go home. I miss it. Right. I love coming home to my family. I love you love your house, but leaving Detroit's always hard. It's such an awesome place. Also got to say thanks to Morgan. He hit me up. "I will see you this fall, buddy. Do not despair. We will get together and make all that happen too." So at that and everybody else, I'm probably missing like 40, 50, 60 people here when I'm doing this. So
we love you all.
Yeah, if I didn't mention you, I just want to say thanks.
It was great meeting like Mathis and all these people whose names I know, based on their name, but not like face. So
start to finish, the experience was amazing. Other than the part where I janked up my knee hauling the equipment back down, the thing, I couldn't go to the last day of practice. But other than that, it was great. So anyway, with all that being said, right, it was a big week. It was non-freaking stop. I didn't get more than 4.5 hours of sleep any day during that whole time. It was crazy getting everything done, getting the coverage, getting the shows together, and all the other events we had. Wouldn't give it up for the world, but it took us a little bit to get back on after we got back home. Had to catch up with a regular day job and all that stuff. So we're doing this show now. We will be back on track. Next Tuesday, we're back on with a normal group of our shows.
Yep.
We're talking about doing a post-game show after the 3rd preseason game, the most important game. After the 4th preseason game, I'm going to be in India that week. We're going to try to figure out if we can put something together. Not sure how that's all going to work just yet, but we'll be working on that. And again, we're going to go back
to some local Lions fans.
Yeah. Different kind of Lions, right? Bengals fans out somewhere else. So anyway, yeah. And then once the season starts, boom, we're doing our post-game show every game except Thanksgiving. I think the rest of the games are at good times that we can do them. So you can expect the Packers game is an 8:15 p.m.
And I'm hoping, as we talked about earlier, I'm hoping that I'll be able to join for more post games than I was this last year. I think I maybe only made it to 1 or 2 this last year because I'd gone through the divorce. I just moved back to Fargo. I had a new job. Things were just, I didn't have a lot of control over my own schedule. I have a little bit more now. So hopefully I'll be able to get there at least for, 3, 4, 5 at least, so that I can,
yeah, absolutely,
wallow in misery with everyone else.
Oh, we'll be celebrating. We'll talk about that shortly. So anyway, there it is. Big thank you to everybody, and a little bit of a look at the schedule ahead. We are back in the saddle. And we're getting to get back to the regular thing for you folks. Again, it'll all be available on YouTube as well. Love the downloads. Someone asked me about this. Love the downloads in the podcast. So if you keep downloading it, that's the long-term best bet for us to help us out. But the stuff you watch on the YouTube is the short-term push to help us build out that long-term piece as well. So if you download all the podcasts and you're a YouTube person, you like to watch it there instead, do both. Do that. That's great. That's super huge help for us. We appreciate it. So, all right, move on. We alluded to this in the opener. With all this happening, this knucklehead Case winds up deep in the bowels of Minnesota territory, or at least the bowels, and he in Fargo, the bowels, the
cockles.
The knucklehead winds up on TV on the Fox affiliate and talking about the Lions and evangelizing for those who didn't have a football team about how great the Lions are. Case, okay, there's a couple things to explain. First, tell us how the hell you got on this thing.
Well,
and what's going on? How did anyone say, let's put Case on TV and talk about the Lions and Fargo? This is a great idea.
Okay. I mean, first of all, Adam Benjamin, friend of mine, Adam Ladwig, works for the local, he's an anchor for them, does, every day their morning show. So, great guy. Met him, I want to say like 5 years ago, back when I was still living out in New Rockford, North Dakota. He came out there to do a story about something, met my ex-wife. They became friends, and then I became friends with him. And he's just a really great guy. I'm very happy to know him. He's a diehard Broncos fan. So, even after I moved back to Fargo, we had an opportunity a couple times to go out and watch games at a local sports bar together, things like that. So he's a wonderful dude, wonderful person. And when he saw on Facebook, me posting all this stuff about my trip to Detroit, and he said, well, hey, there's a story in that.
Yeah, for sure. So you get on, and then let's talk about this. So he's your friend. You figure you guys would know each other and have your routine down. Start off the top. You can't even shake the man's hand with any kind. You left the man hanging. What's going on here?
Well, I looked at him.
You put me on TV. Let me fucking insult you right off the top.
First of all, okay, so I'm being told to.
I'm just telling you now after that fucking joke.
I'm being told by them, the people at the studio, don't try to look at the camera because you don't know which camera is going to be on. Just look at Adam. So I'm looking at Adam, and Adam reaches his hand out as in a gesture, and I really did think for like half a second that he was trying to shake my hand, but then he immediately pulled it back. So I was like, I almost went for it, which is why it looks so awkward. Like I almost went to reach for his hand, but I was like, he pulled it back, and I was like, well, I'm not going to make it weird now.
It's already weird enough.
I talked to him afterwards, and I read the situation correctly. He was not trying to shake my hand. That is a move that he does, and he said, man, I should probably not do that anymore.
He put people off in the first 3 minutes. That's when he hit him with the hard questions. All the things. Shook his hand. Are you still beating your wife?
So, no, I read the situation correctly. I'm glad that I didn't make it any more awkward than it already was. That I thought that I almost went for a handshake and leaned back, because it would have been, yeah.
So again, check out the YouTube channel.
Absolutely 100% confirmed. That was not a missed handshake. That was a gesture by him that he should probably reconsider.
If you ever thought that Redditors were not awkward, you can get the proof in the pudding that they are on our YouTube channel. Case on TV. Check it out. YouTube.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. All right. Good stuff. Great to see you on TV, man. It's crazy how
it was a lot of fun. It really was.
This is really in the short near term, things have just gone off the hook for us, haven't they? Just been crazy.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's get into it. Lions' first preseason game. People's expectations were high, and boy, the Lions did not disappoint. A big 31-3 game in the Ford Field against the Patriots. Unfortunately, that 3 was scored by a second-string punter. Santosa watch. That 3's on me, baby. That was not how we wanted to start the season or preseason, was it, Case? Should we pack it in? Is it over? Do we want to look to 2020 now?
Yeah, probably. Okay. No, I mean, you'd much rather see your guys physically dominating the other team. So I mean, I'm not here to suggest that like it was a good look that for most of the guys out there.
Really want to see him dominate the other team. That's I'm going to take a note on that one. Actually, that's
in your new Lions notepad.
Yeah, hey, let me know if you guys want one.
There we go. Yep, looks good. But the level of the reaction to me, the first preseason game, and I mean I don't know. I think I've probably said this every year that we've been on the air, is the most meaningless thing you can watch in terms of whether they win or lose, what the final score is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are certain things. Well, and I love that football's back, and I will watch the shit out of it. So, like, don't get me wrong, but if you want to extrapolate what happened this week into what will happen the regular season, you're getting way ahead of yourself. What you should, the context you should put it in.
20 already, if that's what you want to do.
In my opinion, in my humble opinion, this is a good place to set a bar and then watch what happens over the next few weeks. Watch where they're able to improve on this. And then you could say, okay, things are moving in the right direction, as opposed to looking at this and saying, well, shit, if we have to ever play any of our second string offensive linemen, we're going to get into them. Stafford is literally dead. Literally dead.
If we have to play all 5 of them, he just might be.
Right.
But I don't see that case being the case. No, and that's exactly right. I mean, the first preseason game is look, as much fool's gold as the first regular season game. Also, you think about it, this may wind up being a good thing for the team, because as practices went on here ahead of this game, there was a little bit of a malaise, that camp malaise that was starting to hit, and coach was getting pissed. He was, when we were there earlier in the camp, there wasn't as much of the Coach Patricia, the Matt Pat outburst, right? It was good. People were grinding, they were doing the thing. But as camp started wearing on, and the word is, coach started getting angrier, yelling more, getting into guys' faces for not performing. And I think that's a natural part of this, of players going through this process of camp and getting ready for season. This game just might be an excellent kick in the tail for some guys who need it, for a team who maybe was just sitting back a little, saying, it's just camp. This kind of a humiliation, this will hurt you, right? When the guy that's not going to make the team is the only guy that scored any points, and he did it playing out of position, which I'll tell you, that field goal wasn't an easy one, but this is what sold me on, on Santoso before. Martin wasn't kicking well, he was still hurt, it seemed like. Santoso was punting like a madman, but he could put it between the uprights, and he could back up Prater. That's what I loved about Santoso, and you saw it. He nailed that kick like it was nothing. So there's a place in the NFL for that guy. I hope he makes it. We talked to Casey Redford, and we talked to all kinds of kickers. We have this kickers corner for some reason here, but he's a guy that I really can't believe hasn't stuck already.
Somewhere.
Yeah. All right. So that was that. Anything else about the game you want to talk about?
Well, we'll get into several like minutia as far as specific players too, because I mean that's where the value in this game lies, is in the specific player evaluations, how they did versus this, how they did versus that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, I'm not suggesting there's nothing to glean from this game. I'm just suggesting that the ultimate outcome, the score, things like that, that's just not that real. Important.
It's not real, right?
It sucks to lose. It always sucks to lose. I hate it when they lose too. But if you treat this game like this was the Jets game last year, and that like you're ready to throw in the towel because they got dominated in preseason week 1. Ooh boy!
Well, but here's the deal: it's not real, right? It's just really, it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Speaking of fantasy, see what I did there? Segue. The best fantasy football league you'll ever get involved with. Why? Because it's our annual fundraiser. Help support the show, and you have a blast and can win some dough. How do you do it? I gave this link before last show, and I was wrong. But go to fantasy.detroitlionspodcast.com, fantasy.detroitlionspodcast.com. You can get in there, all the different fantasy leagues. There's no IDP this year, none of that defensive player stuff. We have a beginner, intermediate, champions league. Half the pot comes to us. Half the pot goes to the winners of the thing. There's also shirts. We've quadrupled the prizes this year over other years. We've made the fantasy setup a lot more fun for everyone to play. We've also got some pick'em leagues. There's a big pool pick'em league and a small pool pick'em league. A set of leagues.
Try your hand against me, the pick'em master.
He's the master picker.
You can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose.
I'm not gonna. Anyway, I'm just not gonna. I thought my segues were bad. You're stick to the opening joke, my friend. So yeah, all kinds of great stuff. And again, it's a fundraiser. It's our yearly fundraiser for the show. The one way that we raise money for us, other than the other affiliate stuff we do, this is the one that really keeps the servers on, the lights on. Again, quadrupled the prizes. You can win shirts. You can win merchandise. You can win straight up cash. And it's a great way to go. Fantasy.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Hook it up. Get your fantasy team going and have a lot of fun with us. You'll play against us. Riz is going to be in there. Case, myself, a whole bunches of people. Join us and have some fun. All right, let's get into this Lions game now. First preseason game. It is a fantasy. And when you're talking about fantasies, you want to talk about who to start, who not to start. And let's talk about who didn't start this game, right? Because look, even though it's a fantasy kind of situation with this game, a 31-3 score is a tough number to swallow.
It's not fun.
No.
It's not fun.
It's hard to swallow that number. But let's talk about what happened here. Stafford didn't start. Carrion didn't start.
Nope.
Marvin Jones didn't start.
Nope.
Kenny Galladay didn't start.
Nope.
So right off the top, your top 4 players in offense weren't there. Okay. Devon Kennard didn't start.
Nope.
Jared Davis didn't start.
Nope.
They seem to be a little bit important on defense.
Damon Harrison didn't start.
Yeah.
Sean Hand didn't start. Ashawn Robinson didn't start.
Did you hear about a guy named Quandre Diggs? I don't know if you know the name. Some people say it's Quandre. And Diggs. Quandre Diggs didn't start. And then even beyond that, the offensive line, the starting offensive line, and we'll go into this more later, they only played a single series. So, guys, let's not freak out about this number, this score. None of the real players for this team, none of the people that are absolutely 100% going to be in the roster in week 1 were on the field.
I've made the joke several times on this podcast in the past, but the whole thing, I always loved Chase Daniels as a quarterback just because his name told everybody what to do. David Fales
we'll get to that.
is getting really
he is aptly named.
Yes, he does.
So what do you what's the takeaway from that? Look, the offensive line, we'll talk about the second hand line. If those 5 guys start for the team, again, just pack it in. Go watch the Red Wings. Your season's over. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we lose all 5 of our starters and we're starting entirely second string guys on the offensive line, Jesus, yeah. we have a negative win total.
We will probably destroy the NFL.
We'll be the first team to have a negative 2 in 16
because every possible backup will be dead.
Right.
We'll be starting high school guys. Right? It'll be a wreck. So that's not going to happen, period. Don't worry about it. What we saw there, and the idea that, oh, well, their backups against our backups, their backups are better. That means they have more. No, that's not true. So don't worry about it. Just kind of breathe deeply, let it go. You got to watch some football. That's the first real Lions football you've seen since the big blowout. And let's face it, we had that big shutout is the last game against the Packers last year that the Lions played. Mm-hmm. Your expectations were probably pretty high coming into this game. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We'll see more. We'll have a lot of fun with it as we go on. One of the things, though, that was a little bit concerning, right away, Tom Savage went down.
Yeah.
And what was that, his second or third series? I think it was the third series. Now that I'm kind of digging in on this in my brain. And he went down, head to the ground. I saw it, and this is hard. It's hard to judge on TV. Just like you look at those guys and how big they are. And then I see them there, like a lot of them just little guys. But it didn't look like he hit that hard. I thought maybe he pinched his ear or something when he hit the ground, right? It just kind of the way the helmet pinched his ear and it hurt like hell. But no, we don't have official word on it. Haven't seen it yet, but it does, based on everything else, it does look like it could have been a concussion kind of situation. Our sideline medical staff from Detroit Lions podcast is reporting, no news from the team, nothing on the report yet, but it looks like
Not yet.
looks like the possibility is there. Really sucks because he had a really bad concussion back when he was with the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
And the multiple concussion. I mean, your example, right? The damage that multiple concussions can do to somebody. And,
very true. And we talked about this before the show, but no, I am someone who has had multiple concussions, and most of them when I was, in my formative years. And I don't know, but I do wonder sometimes if certain things that I have issues with, short-term memory, whatever, that kind of thing, aren't a result. But that's not really important to the point. The only thing we know right now is that he left the game. We don't know any degree of severity on his injury.
It could even not be a concussion, to be 100% fair.
Oh yeah, totally. You might even be right. It might have just been like he hurt his ear, for all we know.
The Detroit Lions podcast sideline medical staff is ass. Let's just be honest.
It's
they have no idea
probably a concussion situation, but the severity is, the severity of just because it's a concussion doesn't mean it's like a one size fits all type of thing. He could be, back in action for game 2. I mean, as soon as we know, you'll know around the same time we do, but it just isn't. It would be nice if he was ready to go next week, just because I don't think
nobody wants to see
valuable reps are being had during games by receivers, especially guys who are now Jermaine Kearse injury. It's significant here,
which I think pushes Travis Fulgham up a little bit. Which and you can't evaluate these guys when you have somebody
right.
When you have somebody like David Fales, right? And let's move to that again. Aptly named David Fales. It's like somebody named Al. How the hell do people know that when they name their kid Al, he's going to be a big fella? Because it's never little Al. It's always big Al, right? It's always big fucking Al. How do parents know when they're born this little, we'll name him Al because he's going to be big Al. It's just the thing. David Fales. How did they know? How did they know that?
How did they know he was going to? Yeah, no, I don't know.
And I don't mean to knock
that was some pretty good precognition right there. But
we talked about this a little bit during camp. You think about it. Here's David Fales, and this is a great example because I don't want to hit on him as a person, right? And he spent his life. I have
no idea who he is as a person. I've never heard anything about him.
You got a guy here who was probably the best in his conference, right? Was killing it at quarterback. Everyone knew who David Fales was, where he grew up. Like, holy cow, wow, this guy's gonna be good. Then he goes off to college, and he's probably, because we've heard of him because he's drafted in the NFL, probably one of the best at his position at the college in a long time, or at least really, really good and notable, right? And so now he's in college and he's big man on campus. Everyone's like, oh my God, look at him, he's the quarterback of the football team, or he's the star corner, or whatever position they play. And everyone tells them how great they are and how awesome they are. And they want to be their best friend because who doesn't want to be around celebrity, right? Because you get all the people that want to muckle into that. And then you wind up in the NFL. You spend your whole life working, being the super celebrated stud. You get to the NFL. So then all these people can just tell you that you suck. I mean, that's how horrible is that you spend
jerks
all that
like
time?
us.
Yeah, just like us, right? And it's not that he sucks or is a bad person. It's just he's not NFL ready, right? And you look at what happened, and people say all these horrible things about this guy. You think about the juxtaposition in your brain. As a player, you're like, wow, I've been good. I've been the greatest. Everybody wants me. And then all of a sudden you get to this position and you're not there. You can't elevate to that level. You're not playing at that level. Some guys have a hard start and get better, but there's some guys that just like I don't know about David Fales. I just don't see a long future for him in the NFL. And it sucks for him. He got probably the most snaps he's going to get in the NFL in this game because Tom Savage went down. If Savage stays down next game, he'll probably get a lot of snaps then too. But I think the jury's in on him, and I doubt he's going to wind up on the team unless Savage is down and out, and we can't find a replacement.
If Tom Savage's injury is going to keep him out of game 2, it would not be in the least bit surprising to me if they brought somebody else in who they play over David Fales. And I'm not suggesting I have an answer because there aren't good answers out there, but David Fales is not an answer.
No, he is not the answer. You are abdicating your responsibility as a GM.
Brock Osweiler's out there. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, David didn't look good.
Tyler Kaepernick is out there, but I don't want to wade into that whole shitstorm again. So
it doesn't matter where you fall on it. It's just not worth talking about. And when he becomes a Lion, then we can talk about it. But until then, we'll see. All right, let's talk a little bit. So David Fales is not the answer. Tom Savage, we hope, gets better very quickly and can return to form. We'll see Safford in game 2, but he's not going to play the whole game. And I think what we saw in all the injuries in this game, and we'll talk about a couple more of them as we go on, is this is the reason your starters don't play. Straight up.
Right.
This is it.
Right.
All right, so let's go on. There's a little bit of weirdness at linebacker. We've got some really good players here, but they don't happen to fit the scheme. Is this a case of they're the best player available, so we're going to keep them and we're going to force them into the scheme, or what are we going to do here?
It's tough. It's really tough, and it's 2 guys specifically that we're talking about. 2 guys who've been having some of the best camp on the defensive side of the ball of anybody, and that is Miles Killebrew and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. 2 guys that everybody at one point in time, we ourselves included, have been high on for one reason or another. Guys that we wanted to see succeed, guys who have flash potential, but who 100% don't fit the mold of what Matt Patricia wants his defense to be.
Right.
And so it creates a situation like, how do you pass on them? Do you let them slip off the roster, either or both, because somebody else fits what you want to do better but isn't as good a player? Or do you adjust
your scheme?
Do you stay versatile as a scheme, as a play caller, as a scheme guy? And it's a challenge, and it'll be very interesting to see where Matt Patricia comes down on that line. I think, long term, I still think it makes sense to go after the guys that fit what he really would prefer to do. In the short term, I think I feel like he's smart enough. Hopefully, we all know he's brilliant to find ways to effectively use guys who are doing really well. We had the reverse situation, you know what I mean? With the Kyle Van Noy under Tara Lawson. Tara Lawson just never was able to use him in an effective way. And he went to Matt Patricia's defense, in New England, and they knew how to use him. And immediately, I still think that, he's a little bit overrated in terms of what he did there. But at the same time, you turned a lost cause into something that was productive.
Member of the
right, exactly, absolutely.
And that's where I don't think he's overrated. I mean, he's had some good plays. I think expectations were so low that people feel really good about what
so
they
there's
got
a little bit of there's almost a little bit of a meme aspect to it, just because he overcame expectations in a significant way, which is great. I hold nothing against Kyle Van Noy, even though he said something about toilet bowl of Super Bowl, but I mean I have a hard time holding that against him, because things were not going well at all in Detroit at that moment, especially on the defense. Yeah. So point being, again, if Patricia has these players and they're the ones who are performing the best but don't fit what he wants to do, can he be adaptable enough to find ways to use them effectively?
What do, right?
Right. I don't know, and I don't know the answer. I'm hoping we'll find out the answer. If both of those guys make the roster, that's probably an indication that he's planning to find a way to use them.
Yeah, I would assume that if someone makes the roster, they're fine. They've got a way to use them.
Right. I'm saying, like, as opposed to just putting them into a role that doesn't fit for them. I'm hoping, you know what I mean.
You want to talk a little bit about Trey Lamar? We had a really, really good story of him on the and I got to tell you, Chris Robbins, Alex, and Ash have been freaking killing it on this site. They've put some really, really good articles together.
Absolutely.
Good analysis, deep stuff on Ty Montgomery, who we'll talk about, or Ty Johnson, sorry. We'll talk about. Yeah.
Careful, buddy.
We'll talk the defense, what we're doing with the defense, how we're building an electric defense. the electric fence. Ooh, that might be something we can do. We can do with this defense if it stands up. That 7-man front, the electric
Don't
fence.
whiz on the electric fence.
That's right, Ren and Stimpy fan. Yeah, no, and I'm gonna go find that for our next show. The electric fence. That's gonna stick. I'm telling you. Anyway, I hope that front seven stands up for it. But yeah, no, there's a lot going on. You know what I mean? And really, really good stuff on the site. A lot of great stuff from the guys right now. If you're looking for some good articles to read, definitely check out DetroitLionsPodcast.com. These guys are just killing it out there. But Trey Lamar, I know you have.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the complete opposite thing. This is a guy who still has a long way to go in terms of proving talent-wise that he belongs, but fits exactly what Patricia wants. If you can assume at this point, and I'm not sure you can fully assume, but it's probably a safe bet that Jelani Tavai will be one of the starting linebackers, which doesn't necessarily mean that he'll be playing the majority of snaps, just because it's tough to tell whether or not nickel, dime, what the base package will be and how many linebackers will be on the field most of the time. But if you want to assume that Jelani Tavai is a starting linebacker for this team, Trey Lamar has shown, and once again, Ash, great article. So I'm mostly just lifting from what he said, but he's shown that he can be that to a slightly lesser degree. It's not dissimilar from what I said the last time we had a real show or an actual show or a normal show about Tom Savage. He's not as good as Stafford is, but you can do you could do basically the same things with him.
Yeah, no, that's good. He's a fanatic. Speaking of fanatic, when you got to make your own segue, it gets really crappy, right? Hey, you want to get your jerseys? You're already seeing after the first game. You're seeing through training camp who you want. I know Mary Lamos was out there with her Zach Center stuff. She got her Zach Center shirt from our store.detroitlions.com. Great place to get some awesome shirts, and merch from the podcast. But we want to talk a little bit about your Lions gear, because it's that time of year. You want to get your jersey, you want to stock up, you want to rep your team. This is the time. Either you're dusting off the old stuff and firing up your old Harrington jersey, or it's time to get some fresh new threads for the season. Maybe you want to get yourself a nice cup to drink along at tailgate. Maybe you want to get, who knows, the Lions loafers for your little tootsies, whatever you want to do. I'll tell you, there's a Lions blanket that is the softest, most comfortable blanket ever. It's become my I'm sick blanket. If I ever get sick, that's the one I want, because this is just the most comforting blanket ever. Anyway, all the great stuff there that you can have. All Lions logo. If you want to get Red Wings, if you want to get Pistons, you want to get your college teams, it's all there. Any team, any league, it's all there. Fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Head on over, get all your gear. Rep your favorite teams and rep them proudly by getting your gear from Fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. They give us a little kickback, and it's a great way to help the show. Support us by doing something you're going to do anyway. You can support your team, you can support the show, and you can do it in one full swoop. As always, it never costs you a penny more. It's very simple. You just type that fanatics.detroitlionspodcast.com into your browser, and it'll take you straight there. No funny stuff, no stops. Takes you right to their site, but it lets them know that we sent you. Fanatics.detroitlionspodcast.com. And thank you to everybody who's using that to get your gear. We appreciate your support immensely. It's that kind of stuff, and the Patreon people is how we were able to do our live streams and put all that stuff together, and that we did on this thing, on this trip, this road trip here. Case is dying in the background.
Sorry.
How we were able to put all that stuff together. It's through your generosity and remembering us when you do that kind of shopping. So thank you, everybody. Fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. All right, let's talk about Ty Johnson. Continuing to kill it. Talk about the article by Chris Robbins on DetroitLionsPodcast.com. He's a fast son of a bitch, isn't he? Let's start there. That guy has got some serious speed. He kicks those engines in, and it's gone. It's gone time.
I'm so... it's really rare for me to get excited about a late round rookie before the season even starts. I usually mostly just write most of them off as losses to begin with. I don't usually expect any of them to, I assume that most of them will probably make the roster, although as, the team gets better talent-wise, you might see more of those mid to late round guys not even make the initial roster, which is where we find ourselves, with a couple guys this year. But Ty is he's just killing it every single time I hear anything about him. It's about him doing something great. And this game was no different. You can watch he had 2 big carries, and they were both wonderful. It's just kind of, it gets that Kenny Galladay feeling to it. And I don't mean to, I don't like comparing guys, because I don't want somebody like Ty Johnson to have to live up to, a standard that's really difficult to live up to.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, it's got that feel to it that he's so good, and there isn't even anything negative to say about him right now. Like, I literally am not sure. I remember that he wasn't phenomenal in the pass blocking drills they did when we saw them.
Yep.
But that's the only thing I can say that's negative. Dude's got wheels. He's got hands. He's got moves. He made a nice jump cut. He can get outside.
Took
a
hard shot that drew a flag and hopped up and started jawing back at the guy. No problem.
So I mean, this is and I almost, this is one of those things like, I almost feel bad like sending all my love to a running back, a depth running back that isn't Zach Zenner, but
I love Zach Zenner.
Yeah, that's going to be a little tough, man.
I am very happy, and there's room for both of them on the roster, and I appreciate that.
You have enough heart for both?
I have enough.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. No, yeah, he looked great out there. He found that other gear, came up after a tough hit, and that's the part I liked, that attitude. The other side of it is with him and Carrion. You got Johnson and Johnson in the backfield again. That's always a little fun play on words between Johnson and Johnson. The electric fence. You can damage them and you can heal them up. Sounds like
there's no tears.
Yeah. Just stick to the opener. Right? Just stick to the opening joke and then just deadpan after that. You're So yeah, no, he's looking good out there. Like I said, great article. If you want to dive in a little bit, check that out. But he's definitely someone to watch through this preseason, because I don't think he's going to fall off the roster. We saw what looked like, and I haven't heard any feedback on it yet either. ZZ, he looks like he took a little concussion there, didn't he?
Yeah, possibly. Once again, we have no information right now, so I'm not out here trying to.
Saw it immediately after the tackle. When he hit, you could tell his reaction immediately was not good. Took him a second to get up. Was off the field. It could have just been a stinger, could have been a number of things, but it's a shot to the head.
He doesn't have a history of concussions, so it isn't.
And that's a guy whose head you want to preserve, because while it's fun to watch him play football,
he's also brilliant. And right, exactly.
So let's keep that thing in bubble wrap. All right. There is a guy that's hurt, and this is a tough one. It was tough to watch. It was just ugly. He got cut off in a cast. There's some controversy about a tweet as well. I think the guy that tweeted the tweet, I'm not going to go into it too much, but I just think the guy that tweeted it was dumb, was ignorant. Okay, not dumb. Ignorant though is just not knowing something, and then, as is the case on Twitter, it doubled down on ignorant. Right? So it's I think it's a nothing burger. People making a lot of hay out of nothing. But so Jermaine Kearse, broken leg with further damage to his ankle as a result, likely out for the season, right? I mean, that was if he comes back, it'll be week 15, 14, maybe the playoffs. That's just an ugly one to try to come back from. Really, really tough to watch. But it really puts a question mark over the wide receiver room. We liked our top 4. We liked the guys we had. We had guys that we felt like, hey, Jermaine Kearse is a great number 4 wide out.
Right.
That says you've got great talent above him, right? You've got a great set of people. Plus, then you put the tight ends in there that we had. Jesse James looked good when he played. It was all kind of the right good stuff, but the drop off afterwards was severe. It was just straight fall off. So what does it mean? Well, it means Travis Fulgham, our Senior Bowl guy, has now a shot to show what he can do. In camp, he's flashed. Both good and bad, right? We've seen some really good stuff. We've seen some struggles. It looks to me like he may be moving up to that number 4 position, and it was hard to see. Again, David Fales. It's exactly like the Senior Bowl. You have quarterbacks that can't get it in the range of somebody's wingspan about 80% of the time. How are you going to be able to judge a wide receiver's ability if the ball's nowhere near him, right? It makes it really, really difficult. I want to see Fulgham step up. I'd love to see him take some throws from Stafford and see what they can do together to really build some. I mean, like, my confidence is the most important thing to them, but build my confidence in Fulgham as the fourth, because it's time for him to step up. Next man up kind of situation, and we're only game 1 of the preseason. We're gonna have to pick somebody up. I just feel like we need somebody else out there.
It is very unfortunate because we've all know, and we've talked about it quite a bit, that the wide receiver depth for this team wasn't great to begin with. But I was very happy with the top 4, and I did feel like Jermaine Kearse was. He's the kind of guy who will let you down if you expect too much of him. But if you just relying on him for 300 yards a year, a few touchdowns, that's the kind of role he excel in. I think so. So it sucks to lose that guy because we definitely have to replace that guy, and there's no clear alternative. But if you want to look at it from and you all know that I'll look at the most positive situation and say, well, here's where you should be worried. I'll also look at the most negative situation and say, well, here's the potential positive. The silver lining in this is that it does increase the opportunities for a few of the young guys to step up. And the best way to get a guy to step up is to be forced into that high pressure situation of do or die. Yeah. That doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. It doesn't mean that somebody's going to come out of this situation. It doesn't mean that Chris Lacey's all of a sudden going to light it up. It doesn't mean that Andy Jones is going to, take back the worst drop I've ever seen in my life. Or Andy Jones. I'm going to stop picking on him if he does really well.
It was a horrible drop, though. It was horrible.
It doesn't mean that Travis Fulgham will, has any assurance whatsoever of making the roster. It does mean, however, that if the door's open and the opportunity is there and somebody pushes themselves to take that opportunity away from the other guys, that maybe you get, a future in a player as opposed to a guy like Kearse who was never going to be here for more than a year to begin with. So if you want to look at it from a silver lining perspective, that's the best way to do it because it could lead to a more long-term situation.
And I gotta say,
maybe.
I gotta say nice things about Andy Jones because, again, we talk about how great you are your whole life, and then you get to the NFL to be told you stink, right? Imagine your worst moment at your job on film for everybody to see, right? It would be fucking.
And for me to pick on over and over and over again. Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, it comes with the territory. I get it. But oh my gosh, I can't imagine. I mean, look, I've done some pretty knuckleheaded things in my days. To the point where, especially when I was younger, where my boss would walk in on us doing something just completely stupid and say, really? And then I could sit there in the moment and look at it and say, God, we are freaking idiots, right? Just like separate from the moment and see what you're doing. I just can't, again, it was a horrible drop. It was one of the worst that we've ever seen, but it's not necessarily indicative of who he is as a player or his overall thing. He just had a really, really bad drop.
Hey, real quick. The Lions are working out Josh Johnson and Landry Jones tomorrow.
Nice.
So just so it's aware, that probably indicates that Tom Savage is a likely miss for next week. I don't want to raise any alarms because he still might be back next week. It might be a week or two thing. We don't know. But just for what it's worth, even if they wanted to just replace David Fales for the rest of the preseason, I wouldn't complain about that. So.
Sort of freak out going on. No need to freak out. It'll be okay. Promise. All right. Really quick, got to talk about, you want to get tickets to any event, whether it be a concert, you want to see I Prevail. They're out there right now. They're touring like crazy. Case is going to see him in Fargo. I'm going to see him in Ipsy. Riz is right now in Grand Rapids. Telling me about and that's the text I'm seeing if you're watching the video. Telling me about Brian's warm-up routine that he's doing ahead of the show. Place is sold out. Good stuff. You want to get your tickets? You want to go to the show? How do you do that? You go to tix.detroitlionspodcast.com. tix.detroitlionspodcast.com. It'll take you over to SeatGeek where you can pick your seat so no one else picks it for you. And you can get your spot. Any show, any concert, any sporting event, anything that requires tickets, you can get there. tix.detroitlionspodcast.com. TIX. Use that, and we'll get a little kickback. Doesn't cost you any more. Again, that's the thing. We're trying to find things that you guys want to do and you enjoy doing, and you're going to do anyway. But a way that we can help out by pointing you to those places, and we get a little kickback out of it. Help support the show, and that way everybody's kind of doing the things they always did, and we're just getting some money out of the man. So tix.detroitlionspodcast.com. Get your stuff there. It's a great way to go. All right, offensive line. This is a big story today. The first team offensive line played one series. It's usually what you see your quarterback play historically. A little bit different this year. It was the offensive line that played one series. The quarterback didn't play any. And then it was a second team that went out there, and we just watched quarterbacks get Savage got destroyed. We watched Fails just get blasted in the backfield like crazy. And there's one, there's one guy, the elephant in the line, I guess, Crosby. What in the holy hell, Crosby? We'll talk about him a little bit, but let's talk about more broadly the offensive line case. It was hot garbage. That second string offensive line was hot garbage out there. Should we pack it in? Is it time for 2020 again? Hot tub toaster time machine.
It's. I will not remotely say once again. I'll say this again. I'm not going to say there's nothing negative to take away from it. That guys got beat, but as you mentioned, before we even recorded, so I'm gonna steal what you said. Tyrell Crosby looked serviceable when he played last year, and to jump to the conclusion that he is all of a sudden horrendous because of the first preseason game doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's better to err towards what evidence we do have, like longer term, than one outing. Who knows? Who knows what the hell was going on with him?
Bad. Things could have broken in the offseason. He could be a broken man.
Right.
No,
totally.
That, right?
And that does happen. Totally.
Also, players have a bad game. This is one data point. I guess you could call it multiple data points because it's multiple snaps. And he got beat every way from Sunday. Other than the bull rush. He was good against the bull rush. Yep. But other than that, he got beat all over the place.
One of those was also a miscommunication play. Sure. One of the three sacks he let up was a miscommunication play, which is something that is a preseason thing. That's not a shock.
There were so many.
No, I'm not arguing with that. I'm not arguing.
Where are we? Some people are ready to throw Crosby from a burning bus right now, and that's completely overreactive. It's not time. He was serviceable. He was a good backup. He did some good work for us last year, and he was even considered a possibility for the starting line this year,
right,
as we were putting together. This is one game. Don't let this taint what you think of Tyrell Crosby. It may be indicative of where he's at now. It may be that it is time to eject him from the bus and find a replacement, but it's way too early to make that determination. He could have had the flu. Right, he could have been dinged up, had an ankle problem. It could have been any number of things out there. He could have been the scheme that he was given. Just play the bull rush, right? I mean, he could have. We want to see if David Fales can scamper, which no, he can't. We just. There's a lot of things that could happen. Don't use this to condemn Tyrell Crosby yet. Definitely something to watch. It was an ugly performance.
We will be watching him. It's not like don't misunderstand that as Chris and I saying that we have blind optimism in Tyrell Crosby, right, because we don't. There's a lot to prove there. It's also just don't make any mass assumptions off of just period ever. The only thing that you can truly take away from the preseason week 1 performance is that it sucks that Jermaine Kearse got hurt. That's like literally the only thing of. I'm not saying there aren't things you can't talk about. Obviously, we made a whole show about talking about it. I'm not saying there aren't things you can't talk about. I'm just saying that if you say that because he looked bad in this game, you believe there's zero chance that he has any future, then you've gone further than the team itself has, almost certainly.
And to try to glean directional information about players, their trajectories, and so on off of this one game. I mean, let's face it. We practiced against them all week. We're going to face them in the Super Bowl, so we don't want to give away our scheme now, right? So no, it's just it's preseason game one. Don't freak out. And let's talk about that a little bit, about the fan reaction, because it's been really interesting how there's some people, and you can almost, except for that crazy Uncle Charlie, right? You can almost, 80%, 80-20 rule, tell how old somebody is based on their reaction to these kinds of things, right? Mm-hmm. Younger Lions fans who and I was there. I'm not down talking anybody, right? But you get those Kool-Aid goggles going early, and you get so involved and so bought in, and then you get disappointed and you get so mad. You feel like you're lied to. Oh my God! And you just have that massive overreaction or reaction to what happened. Don't let it do that to you, folks. Sometimes it's better to let go of the rope and let the fall take you. Don't hold too tight to the rope. This is one of those things, especially in the preseason. It's meaningless. Most of us probably don't even remember any of the details, how many series the offensive line played in any of last year's preseason games, much less the specific game, the first one. Let it go, let it relax. Let's just watch what happens. Let's see how the team develops. We'll look for things to come together, and really, in week one is where we're going to get our the regular season is where we're going to start getting our best education on what this team is. Also know that this is a team that is built not to fail early. Don't look at it like that, but this is a team that is built to grow and learn as the year goes on. The defense typically starts a little bit softer and hammers it together by as the season goes on. These first couple games are going to be tough games, and we're playing against really good competition, so it's tough to take a team like ours and not have your defense locked down. You definitely are looking at your offense to score to carry you in these early couple games of the season. But Case, let's talk about that fan reaction. I know you were crying. You FaceTimed me from the bathtub, hot bath with the razor blade. You were ready to go at the wrists there, and I kept cheering you on, but you just couldn't do it. What do you think? I mean, is it time? Are we looking at 2021 now? The 2020 joke is over. I guess we're looking 2 seasons ahead because it's all over. Fan reaction.
No, I think you nailed every point that we need to cover. Yeah. I thought about going a few other directions. Decided to leave it, but it is mass overreaction time, and the same thing. I mean, if you look back at last year, even the regular season, and look at the fan reaction after week one. And now, granted, I'm not suggesting that the rest of the season went phenomenal, but the team we saw in week one was most certainly not the team we saw the rest of the year. Right. The team we saw week one was a complete, utter shit show. The rest of the season was disappointing, but not like that.
Right.
And you could put it in the same context and say that just because that happened this week doesn't mean that's a actually good indication of where the team is. We had somebody on Twitter. They actually used my old Twitter, so I assume they don't listen to us that often.
Yeah,
but
I think it's dope.
Suggesting that, well, what do you say now about all this depth we've been building? Well, I mean, I'd say
it was about the Caldwell thing. Right.
That Caldwell and Mayhew.
He's not coaching anybody, is he?
First of all, I've defended Mayhew more than one time in the past. Is better than I think the average Lion fan treats him. That doesn't mean I think he was good. But the Lions were bad with Caldwell. It's not like
he's not coaching anybody today.
Also,
bitch.
If you take a preseason week one loss and extrapolate that as to as if the whole season is already over.
You've picked the wrong team.
Do you want me to save your comment? Because I'll save your comment. Like,
I've got a couple of them. I've got a couple remind me set up on my own little subreddit. We'll bring those up, screenshots and all that. So, anyway, yeah, no, it's great. That's it. So light the house on fire and run away if that's you. Otherwise, sensible is the way to go. To think that this team is in worse shape now than it was in the Caldwell era, or that Caldwell was building this team into an absolute winner,
clearly
is misguided.
Because things kept getting better.
Yeah, it sure did. All right, so with that, everyone calm down. It'll be fine. We'll react appropriately when the games start meaning something. And look, if we start out 0-9, you're gonna, you know us. We're not gonna. As much as I was a rooter for Patricia, and
as much as I like, we've said, whatever. As much as I like, or like in theory, Bob Quinn, if they can't improve on what they did last year, this year, you gotta believe that I'm going to be one of the first people out there making the criticisms, but I gotta wait until I actually see that happen before I'm willing to jump to that. Yeah. I'm not going to be a Patricia fan just to be a Patricia fan. Patricia has to prove something.
Yep. As somebody who is interested in kind of the continuous improvement world and how to put things together and processes and large organizations, in my day job, this is the Quinn and Patricia combination is, for me, the most optimistic I've been about a front office and coaching combination this team has had in maybe my lifetime.
Me too.
Really. I mean, even Wayne Fonts, I remember in the day, look, we had some success there. You can't knock that, but Wayne Fonts was like, oh my God, this guy's rolling around a golf cart with a freaking cigar. It was just like, what the hell? What are we even looking at? This is so Lions. These guys are professionals, and I really, really believe that they have the right stuff. The problem is the fan base is rightfully wants wins. Now, right. And you deserve it. We all deserve wins out of this team. We've been here. We've been along for the ride for a long time and haven't gotten the wins that we deserve and want. But it's not like the organization doesn't want it. It's not like the Fords are holding back money or purposely sabotaging. That whole thing is silly. Everybody in there wants a win as much as we do, and you think that that's not going to make their careers and their lives to bring a win to this organization? You're crazy. There's no one in there that is sabotaging this team from winning, and they want it as much as we do. I believe that these guys can do it. I worry that it's going to take a little more time because the roster was so decimated and lacked depth so badly, and there was no plan, and we were in cap hell, and now the CBA and everything else. I'm worried that they're not going to get enough time to put the plan into action.
I can see that. I can see that being a real possibility.
At the same time, give them the time, and if they can't deliver, now what? Right, you're on the other side of it. You've given the time, and they weren't capable. It's one of the most difficult things to really predict and be able to put together. But my sense right now is the brains we have on this team, and I was talking to Dan about this behind the scenes, and he's a very much of a similar mind. These are some of the smartest guys that we've seen in these positions, and but you still need the wins. You still got to have those wins, and they have to come soon enough to allow your brains to go forth.
I completely agree.
So there you are, man. With that, I really quick want to talk about Amazon. Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Use that; it'll take you straight there. Anything you buy, sell, trade, whatever on Amazon, use that link. If you're going to buy, re-up your Amazon Prime for the year, go ahead and go to Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. It'll take you straight to the site. They give us a little kickback, like the other stuff. It's a great way to help the show. Doing things you're going to do anyway. It's just a couple extra letters when you type it in. And all you folks that are doing it, thank you so much. We appreciate it. It, like I said, pays the bills, helps us keep doing our thing and expanding and getting better. And paying for Case's hotel room and all the other stuff is part of the show. So thanks everyone who does that. Now, a little bit, I want to talk about the Dan thing. I know we had an Antonio Brown piece, Case. Do you mind if we skip it this week?
And maybe touch totally.
Because I think Hard Knocks, we'll hit that, I think, next week. But talking about what we were discussing with Dan, we're going to put that up here again from the party. We set it up. We had Dan interview Dean Blandino. We had audience questions, and then also Dan's questions. And you talk about an absolute professional, right? You see Dan doing his thing. It's really amazing. He's just so good, so good. So we have that. It's available on YouTube. If you go to youtube.com, you can see it there as well. I want to get that. Also forgot one thank you. There's Mahir Magani. He came out to the party, and I wanted to give him a big thanks. I owed him more time, and I didn't get it. I wasn't able to put it together. Thanks, bud. I appreciate it. He brought his dad and his I believe his brother out, and they hung out for a while, and it was really great to have him there. Guy's an emergency room doctor in the Bay Area, and flew into town for the Lions and for our party and the whole thing, and really put it together just to hang with us. And unfortunately, with everything else going on, we weren't able to spend the time we wanted to. So big thanks to you. Anyway, so we're going to do this. We're going to wrap up the show here, but after we close the show, we're going to go directly into the Dan Miller and Dean Blandino interview. Great questions. Again, the audience were able to put their questions together and submit them. It's absolutely, it's hard hitting. It's the real questions with the real answers. And they were both wide open and a lot of candor there. And it was a good way to get a little idea of what's going on in the head of your former VP of officiating. With that, we're going to bring it to close this week. Make sure we need your involvement. Use the comments in the subreddit. Give us the feedback that you want us to improve. Let us know. That's where to do it. But those 5-star ratings, baby, those are forever. iTunes, Google Play, everywhere else. Go ahead and give us those ratings. We appreciate those. 5 stars all the way. Also, don't forget about us on Patreon. The Patreon people Slack. It's the best, most intelligent Lions chat on the internet. Patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. As little as $1 a month donation gets you in there, and you will not regret it. It is worth every penny and a lot more. So you can donate more. We're not going to stop you at $1. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast. It is also available to see us. That's great English. On Twitter at DET Lions Podcast, DET Lions Podcast on Twitter. The very, very best place to see Case.
What?
Exactly. Give us a call via Skype, Detroit Lions Podcast. It's all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast. Or call us on the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS, 929-335-4667. And be sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast so we can appear at your fingertips and in your ears automagically. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time on the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems, baby, because we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection.